Have you ever wondered why so many doctors and specialists rarely discuss the ideal diet for managing fibromyalgia? In this video, I'll be breaking down the most effective dietary practices for managing fibromyalgia from the perspective of a surgeon and gut microbiome expert. Over the past decade, I've worked with numerous patients battling fibromyalgia, and the insights I'm about to share will make a significant difference if you're dealing with persistent symptoms. These tips and tricks are practical and actionable, so stick around. You don't want to miss this. Hi, I'm Dr. Dasari, a surgeon with a focus on reducing inflammation caused by gut microbiome imbalance. Over the past 12 years, I've perfected an approach called the Mind-Gut Immunity Method, which has helped thousands of patients manage chronic pain and autoimmune disease without relying heavily on medications. Most people will see a majority of their symptoms gone in a matter of 6 weeks. You may be surprised by this, but when we examine fibromyalgia through the lens of gut health, it becomes clear that imbalances in the gut microbiome often play a central role in driving pain and inflammation. If you're curious to learn more about how we approach this and hear real client success stories from our patients, click the link in the description below or visit mgiclinic.com to schedule a discovery call with me. I'll walk you through some practical steps that you can start taking today. Let's dive in. Here's a 2024 study that talks about diet and fibromyalgia and how certain nutrients play a role in symptoms. Here's a 2022 study that evaluates the role of nutritional therapies in treating fibromyalgia, highlighting antioxidant-rich diets and nutritional supplementation. They talk about vegetables, healthy fruits, proteins, and fats. And in this 2021 study, they looked at vegetarian and vegan diets. They looked at the role of plant-based micronutrients on fibromyalgia patients, focusing specifically on biochemical markers, sleep quality, pain management, and overall health. In this video, we're going to explore the ideal diet for managing fibromyalgia, whether you're dealing with persistent pain, fatigue, or brain fog. Finding the right foods can be challenging, especially if you're trying to reduce your symptoms without relying on medications like pain relievers or antidepressants. Over the years, I've helped many people ease their fibromyalgia symptoms and reclaim their energy naturally without the need to rely solely on prescriptions. So what makes this approach different? Many specialists may tell you that fibromyalgia is something you just have to manage without addressing the underlying factors. From my experience and research, I've seen that a lot of this advice doesn't get to the root of the problem. So first major point to make, the importance of phytonutrients. There is substantial research highlighting the key role phytonutrients play in managing and reducing the symptoms of fibromyalgia. Here's a 2020 study exploring the impact of tryptophan and magnesium-enriched diets on psychological variables and sleep quality in women with fibromyalgia. This 2024 study analyzed the effects of probiotics and prebiotics on pain, sleep quality, depression, and anxiety in fibromyalgia patients. The results showed that by recalibrating the gut microbiome, you can increase sleep quality, depression, anxiety, and pain, while prebiotics can also improve sleep quality and pain. Another 2024 study investigated the role of mitochondrial dysfunction in fibromyalgia and evaluated the effects of herbal supplements and polyphenols in modulating it. There is extensive research showing the impact of phytonutrients on chronic pain and inflammation in conditions such as fibromyalgia. While we could delve into the details of these studies, let me just break down some of these key points that truly matter for managing this condition. Phytonutrients are powerful plant-based compounds found in food like fruits, vegetables, and herbs. These compounds include antioxidants, flavonoids, and other micronutrients that help reduce inflammation and support overall health. When it comes to fibromyalgia, optimizing your intake of these phytonutrients can be transformative in reducing pain, calming nerve sensitivity, and boosting energy levels. Phytonutrients are categorized into several key groups: terpenes, phenols, chlorophylls, and prebiotic, among others. Each of these groups has a unique role in helping the body manage inflammation and maintain optimal function. Unfortunately, many people with fibromyalgia lack these essential components in their diet, leading to an imbalance in the gut, nervous system, and immune response. The goal is to maximize the diversity and quantity of phytonutrients in your diet. Your body will have the resources it needs to combat the underlying issues that cause fibromyalgia. On the flip side, a diet low in phytonutrients can leave you more susceptible to chronic pain, fatigue, and flare-ups. I always recommend integrating phytonutrients to every meal. Think of every meal as an opportunity to nourish your nerves, support your immune system, and maintain a healthy gut. This is especially crucial for those with fibromyalgia because your diet directly influences how your nervous system processes pain and energy. The takeaway is simple. Phytonutrients are essential for modulating your body's inflammation response, giving you a better chance of managing fibromyalgia effectively. If your diet lacks these components, it's likely contributing to ongoing pain and fatigue. And prioritizing a phytonutrient-rich diet is a key part of keeping inflammation and symptoms under control. Second major point, nutritional needs and macro counting. In recent years, intermittent fasting has gained popularity as a potential solution for reducing inflammation and pain. However, when it comes to fibromyalgia, I want to caution you against this approach. Extended periods of fasting can be counterproductive, particularly for those with chronic pain conditions. In fact, a recent 2024 study showed that intermittent fasting can increase the risk of cardiac death by 91%. And that's a serious condition for anyone considering fasting as a long-term strategy. Despite the risks, many people, including those with fibromyalgia, believe that fasting is a quick fix for their symptoms. And in the short term, it may seem to work because you're not feeding the bad bacteria and inflammation processed in your gut. However, as time goes on, problems like muscle wasting, nutrient deficiencies, and increased fatigue start to emerge. So you'll see things like unwanted muscle and weight loss, you'll see thyroid dysfunction, elevated cortisol and stress levels, you'll see sleep disturbances, nutritional deficiencies, and digestive issues like nausea, bloating, and appetite loss. And if you go too long, you'll see persistent fatigue that leaves you feeling pretty drained. When these problems develop, eating becomes even more challenging, and you may feel bloated, gassy, lethargic, and low on energy after meals. These symptoms can deter you from eating adequately in the future, creating a vicious cycle that is very difficult to break, especially if you're underweight. Being underweight with a body mass index of 18 or below can be particularly problematic. And you can easily calculate your BMI using this BMI calculator by entering your height and weight. It can be found on my website. If your BMI is below 18 and you have fibromyalgia, you're at serious risk. I've treated patients with a BMI as low as 13, which is very, very severe. And when you have low BMI and fibromyalgia, it means your body is in a catabolic state, breaking down protein rather than building up. The solution to managing fibromyalgia and improving gut health is not about skipping meals or avoiding food. It's about addressing inflammation and then sustaining a balanced, nourished diet. Unfortunately, many people give up on finding the right foods and fall into this unhealthy eating pattern that only makes their symptoms worse. So when it comes to determining the ideal macronutrient balance for fibromyalgia, focusing on fats, carbs, and proteins is key. For reducing inflammation, I suggest getting about 50% of your daily calories from healthy fats, with the remaining 50% split evenly between carbs and proteins. This approach isn't based on a single study, but rather on years of experience working with people who have meaningfully seen improvements. If your goal is weight loss, lowering carbs and fats while increasing protein can help. If you're aiming to gain weight, focus on increasing overall calories by balancing carbs and fats. Tracking these macronutrients might take some effort, but it's worth it. By fine-tuning your diet, you can better manage your fibromyalgia symptoms, boost energy, and improve overall health. The balance of macronutrients, and when I say macronutrients, I'm discussing fats, carbs, and proteins here, can have a profound effect on the gut microbiome, which plays a critical role in managing fibromyalgia. The bacteria and fungi in your gut rely heavily on sugars, starches, and fibers, all of which are carbohydrates. And here's where things get maybe a little complicated. So you have bad bacteria, or fungus, and you have sugars and carbs and fiber. And these two things together will lead to inflammation. Simple sugars like glucose and fructose feed harmful bacteria and fungi, leading to inflammation and worsening fibromyalgia symptoms. Processed starches, such as those found in refined flour, also have a similar effect. However, complex or resistant starches promote beneficial bacterial growth. Fiber also selectively encourages good bacteria to thrive. I understand that this may seem overwhelming, but you may be asking yourself, why not just cut out carbs entirely? Well, that's where the carnivore diet comes in. The carnivore diet focuses exclusively on animal products, cutting out all fiber and includes some electrolytes. So you will have things like red meat, white meat, organ meats, fish and seafood. They also emphasize animal fats and eggs. This diet eliminates all carbohydrates, including fiber if you're doing it correctly, lactose, starches, and sugars. Unlike keto or low-carb diets that might still include some problematic carbs, the strict carnivore approach removes them entirely. And when you follow the carnivore diet strictly and exclude all dairy and fiber, creating a gut environment where harmful bacteria struggle to survive because of the absence of sugar, carbs, and fiber, this approach can be particularly helpful during flare-ups when inflammation is at its worst. But here's the catch. While the carnivore diet can be effective for short-term relief, it may not be the most sustainable or suitable long-term solution for everyone. The original paleo diet, which evolved into the carnivore diet, was more plant-focused with occasional meat consumption, aligning better with the phytonutrient-rich diet I generally recommend. So while a carnivore diet may help with reducing inflammation during the acute flare-up, it's not necessarily the best strategy for maintaining long-term gut microbiome health. I've covered this topic more in detail in a whole separate video, so be sure to check that out if you're curious. There are also other diets focused on cutting out specific carbs to help manage inflammation. One such approach is the Specific Carbohydrate Diet, or SCD. The SCD aims to reduce inflammation by eliminating certain types of carbs that are difficult to digest and often ferment in the gut, leading to bacterial overgrowth. This diet also allows meat and fish and certain fermented dairy products. There are some vegetables that are allowed, like spinach and broccoli, carrots and squash. The starchier vegetables are excluded, and then the high sugar fruits are also excluded. Nuts and seeds are allowed, and there's an emphasis on oils and fats. Things that are excluded include grains and starches, sugars and sweeteners, and processed foods. There are also certain legumes that are also restricted. Beans are included in this. The SCD diet eliminates fermentable and complex carbohydrates like disaccharides and polysaccharides, which contribute to gut imbalances and flare-ups. I have an entire video comparing the SCD diet with my approach, which is a phytonutrient-rich diet, and I recommend you watch this video for managing fibromyalgia. I have an entire video comparing the SCD diet with my approach, which is the phytonutrient-rich diet, which I recommend for managing fibromyalgia. In my experience, it's far more effective to target gut microbiome issues with specialized probiotics and then support them with a wide range of phytonutrients. The SCD diet lacks the precision needed and often yields inconsistent results. Another diet that's commonly mentioned for managing gut-related conditions like fibromyalgia is Low FODMAP Diet. This diet specifically limits certain fermentable carbohydrates that can trigger gut discomfort and inflammation. And here's how it works. You have things like unprocessed fresh meats, poultry, fish, and eggs, also tofu. You have low FODMAP vegetables like carrots, spinach, zucchini, and bell peppers. You have low FODMAP fruits such as strawberries, blueberries, oranges, and kiwi. And you have certain gluten-free grains and cereals like rice, quinoa, oats, and corn. They do allow for dairy alternatives and nuts and seeds that are low in FODMAP. The diet specifically excludes high FODMAP foods, so things like apples, pears, mangoes, cherries, and certain vegetables like garlic, onions, cauliflower, and mushrooms. Legumes and pulses are basically also excluded, so beans and lentils and chickpeas. And then you're also removing all dairy products, grains, and sweeteners. FODMAPs are short-chain carbs and sugar alcohols that are poorly absorbed in the small intestine, leading to fermentation and gut issues. The main FODMAPs include fermentable oligosaccharides found in foods like wheat, onions, and garlic. You can have disaccharides, you can have monosaccharides, you can have things like polyols, which are sugar alcohols. And there's certain phases to this diet. You'll have an elimination phase and a reintroduction phase. And you might be wondering, why are so many diets that restrict carbs and fiber? Which one of these actually work for inflammation and gut health? The challenge with these diets is that they often don't address the underlying problem, which is gut microbiome dysfunction. If harmful bacteria are thriving on carbs, it can lead to overgrowth and the production of harmful byproducts. This overgrowth is seen in conditions commonly like SIBO and Candida, which lead to elevated histamine levels, inflammation, and I've discussed these topics at length in other videos. The diets I've discussed target the carbohydrate, sugar, and fiber components, but they don't address the root cause, long-term gut microbiome health. Essentially, these diets offer temporary fixes without solving the core issue, delaying the problem rather than providing a lasting solution. Third point, the ideal fibromyalgia diet should be microbiome specific. Avoiding carbs alone doesn't address the underlying issue, which is gut microbiome dysfunction. To effectively manage fibromyalgia, a targeted approach involving phytonutrients and specialized probiotics is essential. Crafting the perfect diet requires understanding that the gut's intricacies and employing strategies that work at a deeper level is very important. This is where the mind-gut immunity approach becomes vital. We start by recalibrating the gut microbiome with precision probiotics, and these probiotics are not the typical ones found in stores. They're clinically backed and specifically designed for gut-related issues. You don't need high CFU counts or multiple strains or even refrigeration. Instead, 4 precise strains are enough to establish a protective biofilm in the gut, keeping harmful bacteria in check. To sustain these healthy colonies, phytonutrients play a key role, predominantly found in plant-based foods. Inflammatory foods and complex protein theory. Certain proteins can trigger immune responses, leading to increased inflammation. For instance, some complex proteins may provoke flare-ups, so it's important to be cautious. However, it's easy to take dietary approaches too far, such as strictly adhering to a vegan or plant-based diet, which might be beneficial for some, but is too restrictive for others. The vegan diet is a plant-based regimen that eliminates all animal products, including meat, dairy, eggs, and honey. It emphasizes various plant-based foods to fulfill nutritional needs. The major concern here is that many people following this diet don't consume enough protein, leading to protein-calorie malnutrition. It's a significant issue when you're trying to heal inflammation, especially within the gut. Your body needs amino acids, and protein should constitute roughly 25% of your daily intake. Additionally, relying too heavily on vegan or plant-based foods often means consuming processed products like fake meats and cheeses filled with additives and chemicals that don't promote long-term health. This approach rarely yields the results that my clients seek. A more balanced and sustainable option could be the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is based on the traditional eating habits of countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea, and it emphasizes whole, unprocessed foods with a focus on plant-based ingredients, healthy fats, and lean proteins. They have a lot of fish and seafood, which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and they're known for the uses of herbs and spices like basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary, and parsley. These are all things that contain phytonutrients. One limitation of the Mediterranean diet is that it doesn't offer a reliable way to track your phytonutrient intake. Additionally, it's crucial that 50% of your daily calories come from omega fats, which are essential for gut microbiome health. While the Mediterranean diet includes many beneficial foods, there's some inconsistencies in the nutritional tracking that can lead to imbalances that slow progress. For my clients, we take a more precise approach by focusing on phytonutrient-rich diets. We meticulously track carbs, fats, and proteins and micronutrients daily to ensure that the diet fully supports and optimizes the gut microbiome. This level of precision is crucial for effectively managing autoimmune inflammation and promoting long-term healing in fibromyalgia. The final key principle in managing fibromyalgia through diet involves recognizing and tracking individual food sensitivities. For fibromyalgia patients, it's essential to consider personal food triggers when crafting an effective diet plan. I've created an in-depth video dedicated to food sensitivity testing for fibromyalgia, detailing the most accurate tests and how to interpret them. Understanding your specific food aversions, sensitivities, and allergies is crucial, and keeping a food diary is the simplest yet most effective method for tracking these symptoms. Although it may seem tedious, it's a non-negotiable step for every single one of my clients. It's important to note that during the flare-ups, it might feel like almost every food is causing issues. However, as your condition stabilizes and you begin healing, you may notice that you tolerate foods that were once problematic. And this is why you regularly updating your food sensitivity profiles is crucial. Your triggers can shift over time as your body improves. So you have a couple different types of food sensitivity tests and allergy tests. The first one is your traditional skin prick test, and this you can find in most allergist office. You can also get a serum IgE test, and the IgE is an antibody that tests for allergies in the blood. You can also get a serum IgG test, and that's an IgG4 test that looks at sensitivities. Then you have the serum MRT test, which is the newest type of test for looking at food sensitivities. I frequently review these tests for my clients, helping them interpret what the results mean for their diet and overall health. If you want a deeper dive into interpreting food sensitivity tests for fibromyalgia, I have an entire detailed video covering the different types of tests, their advantages and limitations, and when's the best time to get tested. For example, it's typically not recommended to test during a flare-up due to the high chance of false positives. Testing when your symptoms are more controlled provides a clear picture of what's genuinely triggering your sensitivities. The AIP diet is designed to help manage autoimmune diseases by reducing inflammation and promoting gut health. It's a stricter version of the paleo diet and focuses on eliminating potential dietary triggers of inflammation and autoimmunity. The diet typically progresses through several phases. First, you have an elimination phase where you're eliminating all the foods that may cause inflammation or immune reactions. These can include things like grains, legumes, dairy, eggs, nuts, seeds, nightshades. And then you have a reintroduction phase where you gradually reintroduce these eliminated foods one by one to identify which triggers are present for your symptoms. And this helps personalize the diet to each individual person. Then there's a maintenance phase where you can maintain a diet and avoid the triggers while focusing on nutrient-dense anti-inflammatory foods. Same is also true for a low histamine diet. The only reason I'm mentioning it here is that it often makes its way into conversations about inflammation, and the idea here is that you avoid foods that trigger histamine commonly. But as I mentioned previously, the gut microbiome is the main producer of histamine in the body, so things like bacteria, candida, and SIBO are all things that need to be addressed. The low histamine diet spends a lot of time trying to avoid common trigger foods, but it doesn't address the gut microbiome component, and it's not specific to each individual since every person has different triggers. I have several videos comparing the phytonutrient diet to each of the individual diets I mentioned here today, so check out the description below to see those videos because I go way in depth into some of these diets and why they fail and what you can look out for. The key points of a low histamine diet include avoiding high histamine foods like aged cheeses, fermented foods, processed meats, alcohol, vinegar, certain fish, and avoiding histamine liberators, which are foods that release histamine stored inside of it. Which means avoiding foods that release histamine stored in the body, such as tomatoes, strawberries, eggplants, spinach, avocados, certain nuts. And then you also want to avoid foods that have biogenic amines, and these are things like bananas, chocolates, and certain citrus foods. These inhibit histamine degradation. Now, as a recap, the principles of an ideal fibromyalgia diet includes phytonutrients, and you know that I'm a huge supporter of the Phyto diet. Nutritional requirements, these include macronutrients such as carbs, fats, and proteins. A diet that's microbiome specific, meaning doesn't exacerbate what's happening with your native gut bacteria and actually can modulate higher amounts of good bacteria in the gut as well. And food sensitivity testing. And a diet that pays attention to inflammatory foods and food sensitivity. At the Mind Gut Immunity Clinic, we spend considerable time developing customized plans for each individual based on these principles. We also provide coaching to ensure accountability and compliance, which is why we achieve consistently great results compared to practices focusing solely on medication. We teach people how to manage their diet from home, offering meal plans, food guides, recipe and grocery lists, and the support ensures our clients are never lost and can manage their condition effectively from anywhere. If you struggle with fibromyalgia and have found certain foods that help or certain foods that worsen your symptoms, comment below. I would love to hear about your experiences. All right, that wraps up this session. Be sure to check out my other videos comparing different diets to the Phyto diet and how they measure up. If you found this video helpful, please share it with others and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content such as this. This is Dr. Dasari with the Mind Gut Immunity Clinic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.